the dagger is removed, and this results in the game shooting itself in the foot. The game suddenly betrays you by not telling you and resetting the timer duration on your rewind whenever you consume an enemy. I actually have an elaborate guess on it. No, it's not this throwaway explanation. What was that all about? We're gonna find out. Hey guys, my name is Farik. I'm a game developer. I've been meaning to make this video for a long time, considering how much I love the time mechanics in Sands of Time series, how much thinking I spent on this. I came to the conclusion that the time mechanics are problematic. In platforming, acts like a blanket that hides other problems, and in combat, introduces design challenges as well as the technical challenges involved in implementing these. Without further ado, let's not begin. I would like to thank you for all of you who interacted with my videos, and one thing I checked before 2024, Social Blade said I would hit 1,000 subscribers in 2027. Now we're at 194 at the time of recording, 1/10 of the way already in. So thank you. I would ask for you to subscribe, but I'll let my content speak for itself. But what the hell, 94% of you aren't subscribed. It's good content. So let's begin with why the time rewind was even added in the game. In one of my previous videos I mentioned the designer of the game, Patrice Desolé, mentioned that they added in time rewind because they were dying a lot. The reason being it was not fun respawning. Considering the second part of that sentence is that it's not fun respawning, well, who likes dying in a video game? And all Sands of Time trilogy games saved at these checkpoints, so respawn would take you to the latest checkpoint, which might be very close or very far off. And this just comes down to the technology or the design at the time. Saving was tied to these checkpoints, while other games down the line gave a lot more freedom on how and when you can save. And the design thing is how much you want to punish the player for failing at a certain thing. Prince could literally fall to his death if he took the wrong jump direction. While I disagree that the game should come and save you once you do anything wrong, but I can see the sentiment that some things should not be that punishing. But once you ask yourself why they were dying a lot, you would be somewhat confused because the controls are really easy. For most of the Sands of Time platforming, it's not time sensitive, except for some traps, even though some of them even slowed you down even further. So why they kept dying? Well, my friends, it's the camera, and a combination of some other things as well, but mostly camera. I haven't seen people talk about this because the time rewind blankets this problem very well. Oh, that's not a ledge that Prince can hold on to, just rewind. This position that the Prince is jumping from is slightly off and you'll miss it. Just rewind. I quickly realized that time rewind is not just a fancy extra retry button, it's extremely needed for this game. While they did this scene, this was the wrong plate that I used for one of my previous videos. This is probably one of the only platforming sections that they counted on the player for having a sand tank and learning that the ledge will fall once Prince jumps on it. I'd say that's pretty good, but in the same shot, the other direction that you should jump to, it's the correct way, it's this ledge right here. I avoided that because at first it didn't seem like a place that Prince can hold on to. Yes, this might be a skill issue, but games should correctly signal the needed information for the player to progress. But how about this scene? This is from Warrior Within. I played that game to oblivion. I possibly know every step of the way. That's why I had to look up playthroughs, but check this one out. Let's see how Shirako takes his jump. Oh, the camera is set up in a way that makes you think you can take it, but no? Oh, Lancelot also took this exact same jump? Look, if you know this place, this is the wrong path. This is just before the first Tahaka chase sequence, and Prince should go here, not there. Well, I know it, and you know it now, but why camera is set up in such a way that players are led to taking that jump? And then they decide to remove the thing that holds the game together in final parts of the Sands of Time. First thing is that the punishment doesn't feel right. Yes, this one's on me. Missing the jump is a very basic task. But how about this? At first, I didn't know where to go. Oh, I should go there. Thanks. Another retry. I should jump on that bar. Another retry. Oh, I should jump on that specific part of it. Thanks. This is another retry. Is this the right place to jump from? No. Look, this is not about skill issues or anything. The game should be able to tell you and clearly signal where is what and what you should do with them. It's the principle that matters, and it failed in this game. And the great thing they did for Warrior Within is that they recognized the issues and strengths that was in Sands of Time and implemented them in the Haka chase sequences. How many times have you messed up the controls because of the immense stress is building up and you jump the wrong way? Take the wrong wall running, only because you felt the pressure to go fast. All the things that they've done to make sure the player is under pressure makes a player to make these mistakes and lean on the time rewind. And finding this extremely satisfying fact about the Haka.
All who have come before you have fallen.
He speaks in reverse, and the time rewind makes you understand what he is saying. Somewhat similar mechanic is in the Two Thrones as well. When you're in the Dark Prince form, you're losing life as time goes on, unless you collect Sands of Time. I don't know the exact rate, but this life drainage will kill you. Also in Warrior Within, the Sand Wraith platforming sessions is 1 or 2 levels above the platforming in other areas. I vividly remember this section. I never could find the correct pathing without slow motion, and Sand Wraith is giving you sand tanks every 12 seconds, an allowance for the designers to design much harder levels, and for players to really lean on the time mechanics. This is good, but the camera thing and removing the time powers probably the most infuriating thing about Sands of Time, except the combat in that game. Speaking of combat, there is this thing about whenever you kill something, the rewind duration gets reset, which resulted in these beautiful moments that were not triggering me at all. But why? You can say this was a design decision to make the combat deeper. If that's the case, I'd still argue that this is a horrible decision. But my elaborate guess is that they were forced into this decision. Bear with me, it's gonna be a little bit long. Previously, in one of my older videos, I mentioned they had only 32 megabytes of RAM on PlayStation 2, the primary console that they were targeting, and they had to make sure the game runs smoothly there. And why the time rewind matters here, because rewinding games is not like a movie that you can just rewind. I had to get my game developer hat on and think about this. There are 2 ways that I came up with. One is recording the commands that's in the game. A command is whenever something decides to do anything. In the case of Sands of Time, it will be like Prince wants to walk somewhere, decides to attack, enemy is reviving, Pharaoh wants to shoot you. But that's a very hard approach, and I don't think they went in on this route. The other way is recording the position and rotation and when animations are happening for each character up to 10 seconds and replay that whenever the play decides and start again. This is not just a point that the game can come back to. Every frame should be able to be hit. This makes it even harder, because if it was strictly 10 seconds, they could skip some frames worth of data and just go back to 10 seconds prior. However, I still think they did some of that frame skipping, but still, this ensured that everything else in the game to be limited by this relatively enormous mechanic at a time. Whatever they did, all the time they had to make sure rewind was working all the time. How much textures they could put in the game at one time and how detailed they were, lighting, how much animations, all that juicy game development stuff that gives people nightmares. And the character limit is here, the 4 enemy character limit. Now this is all fine and dandy, but how does this connect to the rewind duration reset? Well, as you can see in Warrior Within the Two Thrones, you definitely could rewind after an enemy dies. Not saying that you should, but in some situations you would. So this was definitely a Sands of Time thing. Either it was a design decision or something else. While I was researching, I realized that they improved the engine for Warrior Within. Let's take a moment of appreciation that the Chad developers of Montreal were hitting the maximum potential of PlayStation 2 for Sands of Time, and Sony even admitting this. But even after that, they improved the engine by 25%. Giannis is not mentioning RAM here, but the word space probably is referring to RAM that they could use, and it shows. The textures were much more detailed and locations were much more rich and bigger. But bear with me, this means they could do more with the enemies as well. Take a look at this scene. This is 5 enemies at once on the screen on a PlayStation 2. Well, yes, you can say Pharaoh is not here, but every enemy has more animations. Prince has more animations. On top of that, this rewind duration reset is not here. But if you pay attention, you always see this reset after a cutscene or an upgrade for the prince. This probably means one of two things. A permanent thing happened that has happened and cannot be reversed and should not be reversed. Or the more believable reason, they just don't want to deal with it. You might call it lazy, but there are sometimes that you have to make these decisions and it's not even worth it. Like you just got a sword or a life upgrade. Why would the player would go back? For story as well. Although that didn't stop me from trying and getting this.
What kind of beast is this? What kind of beast is this?
That's probably because they had to make some exceptions for the sound thing because of the Haka. But anyway, going back to Sands of Time, for some reason they were avoiding rewinding time after consuming an enemy. My best guess is that they couldn't do any better. If you consume an enemy for 90% of the time, the next enemy pops up. But how should they implement this? One enemy dies, the next one pops up. Player, for whatever reason, decides to rewind. What to do now? The next enemy possibly is not the same type, so different models and different animations should be loaded in. Then rewind happens. Remove this enemy out of the RAM, reallocate memory to the previous one, while still holding the data of the rewind? I bet that something didn't work there. I have been delaying this video for 3 days because I couldn't figure out a correct way to present my argument here. And I'm gonna take a note out of Kindred Blaze, the cancel project, blah blah blah. I have a video on it, check it out. So, in that project, they tried to have the 2 princes at the same time. You would be able to switch the prince between the dark form and the normal form of the prince. And they couldn't because they needed extra RAM for that. If the player decided to switch the prince from time to time at any time without a cutscene, the RAM would require more space than it had, targeting the PlayStation 2. So my guess is that the same thing happened here. If the player decides to rewind after an enemy has died, that enemy, even if the data of the rewind is kept, that enemy should be there somewhere in the RAM so the rewind can trigger it correctly without having to deal with loading and unloading during a cutscene or anything like that. And they were forced into these decisions. As you can see in the game, all enemies dying will reset the rewind duration. All the RAM will be freed regarding the rewind, allowing for the rewind to begin after that point and the new enemy will be there. In Combat for Warrior Within, they removed that system. When you kill a bunch of enemies, it's final. The next set of enemies will be loaded after a while when you progress through the castle, possibly in someplace else as well. Same for the 2 thrones. But one thing that remained problematic, in my opinion at least, was the slow motion. It was unusable in Sands of Time. Now in Warrior Within, it's very fluid, but makes the combat trivial. No matter how good is the combat system, you can just slow everything down. Not to say they didn't see this one coming as well. In the final fight with Kalina, Kalina triggers slow motion for herself, not for the prince, for herself. And you have to pop your own slow motion to combat this. And one of the time powers doesn't work on her. She just blocks amidst your attacks. Also, in the final Dahaka fight, the game just gives you so many sands. It's like, yep, you need to use these. I think they went in using the sand powers as a thing for combat. I think it was limited, but it shows that they saw this coming. And that's it. That's what I think about the time mechanics. I still love the games very much, and probably the time rewind is still one of the top reasons that I love it. But I think they introduced many problems, and inherently they are problematic. During research, I found out about games that they wanted to do rewind but cancelled. And no wonder, it's still fucking hard to implement this mechanic, and the Prince of Persia remake had problems as well. The engine that they used, Anvil, is built for open world games, and it probably requires so much work to implement Rewind. And Forgotten Sands also used the same engine, Anvil, as well, but I'd say engine is just a tool, requires mastery to implement such a thing. And with that, I want to end the video and also the Prince of Persia videos for a while. I have been doing this a lot lately and I'm kind of sick. But if you've subscribed for my videos, don't fret, the subjects and games that I'll be covering, you'll like them. I'm pretty sure that you will like them. Comment down below your thoughts about the time mechanics in Prince of Persia. And like and subscribe and all that jazz. And without other way, I think, yeah, that's the video. Bye.